What is my counselling philosophy? And here's Rory's answer.
It's something that comes up from time to time. It sometimes comes up in assignments, and students are asked, what's my counselling philosophy? And when I was asked this question as a student, I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to read, I don't know, Vishnu or all the other philosophers. And I didn't realise at the time, being slightly ignorant of the academic world, that it was my counselling philosophy, not theirs. And effectively, if you'd removed the term philosophy and put in what are my counselling values, because philosophy is all about talking about values, about how you treat others and society in general, it makes a lot more sense. And my answer is that you offer the best possible service, you practice your modality, you try where you can to make a difference in people's lives, and where you can't, you make a referral. And after having done my 100 hours, my values had changed. It's probably not as easy to impose your values in the therapy room because you're working with two sets of values. Clients have their own value system and you have yours. My therapeutic modality was unconditional positive regard. You had to realize that other people's lives were very different to yours and not to try to impose your values or your philosophy onto them. And as I think I might have written in my assignment, don't leave any fingerprints on the clients. They shouldn't be a clone of you. They should be developing who they want to be.
Oh, I like that. That is really powerful. That keys right into not creating dependence, but independence through counseling and psychotherapy. So what does this mean to me? And that's the question that's asked in this topic. What is my counseling philosophy? Rory's shared a little bit of his answer, and it's going to be as unique as each person that listens to this. You may find that it changes as you develop and learn more and find out more about self, which is interesting. By exploring ourselves deeper, we broaden our reference to be able to serve our clients. My training was person-centered, and what really appealed to me towards the end of my studies, when I'd learned to trust the process, when I started seeing the theory showing itself within sessions and recognize that the modality was going to underpin who I needed to be within the counseling. I guess that's a part of my philosophy, is to trust the process of the modality that underpins my working while I was in practice. And the bit that really stood out for me from person-centered therapy is that self-actualisation that Rogers mentions, given soil of a different kind, the correct soil, that the client will find their own way. We just need to trust that they will find their way if we can provide that soil of a different kind. The soil of a different kind is without judgment. It's that full acceptance of that person. It's being empathic to who they are and the journey that they're on. And then underpinning that philosophy is the humanistic underpinning that there's no bad person. Now, this is my philosophy. From my viewpoint, I look out and I hope there is no such thing as a bad person. There's many people that have done bad things, many. And I look at that not to judge the person and say that's a bad thing, but to look and say, wow, the road that you have walked has brought you to this point in your life, but underlying it, there is a real, good, genuine, honest, loving, kind person. Now that we don't always see in humanity, and we don't always see in the people that we interact with. So a leap of faith for me, but that's why it's a philosophy, and I get to have my philosophy and then put myself out there in the world and have it proven either right or wrong. I wonder, you listening to this, what your philosophy is. And I look back at students we had, Rory, and some of them, their philosophy was to move away from the base modality that they trained in because they'd done a comparative model, and that seemed a lot more alluring and seemed a better fit for them, and that's okay too. And I think what is very important here is that there is a philosophy, and what's interesting is how it changes. And if you look to Rogers' writing, if you look to A Way of Being and read that book, you recognize that towards the end of his career, his philosophy was still changing. If you look at where Roger started off, his roots were in quite a religious family. And it's interesting how he moved away from that and then moved right back to that towards the end of his career, acknowledging that there was something that you couldn't put into words, a spiritual movement that kind of took place within counselling. And that it is interesting to see that even Carl Rogers was changing his philosophy as he was going through his years, Rory.
Oh, yeah. And of course, Carl Rogers had a lot of influential students who went on to be spokespeople for humanity in their own way. And I fell in love with John Shlien, who's one of Rogers' students, and he wrote his principles, John Schlien's principles. And one of them was, don't put old wine in new bottles. In other words, if you do person-centered, don't dress it up as something else. He also said, do what you want, but call it what it is, which I think is very transparent, so the client knows what they're getting. But one that's left the most indelible mark on me through the years was what he said about phenomenology. He said, we may have denials, cover-ups, and lapses of memory, but we are the ultimate source. Deeply phenomenologically. In other words, we know our own truths. And sometimes within therapy, we need an environment to be able to speak our own truths and to be able to confront them. And I think that is the essence of therapy for me.
Powerful.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, if you listen to both Rory and myself speaking about what our philosophy is, it is based on the work of others, the reading of others, standing on the shoulders of others. It's the best view. It really is. And I wonder what your philosophy is listening to this. Person-centered therapy will be as individualistic as the humans that practice it. And I think that's beautiful. And that requires that we should have a philosophy. To practice whatever modality you practice, you're going to have your human stamp on it. Your experience, your core goes into that. And it's worth putting words to that and calling it a philosophy of how, why, and what underpins it for you. What have you learnt? What resonates with you? What is important in that therapeutic relationship? And then you get out and you get to see that come to life in your clients as you work with them. I think it's a beautiful thing, a philosophy.
It is, and it isn't just one to write in an assignment and stick on the shelf and let it gather dust. I think your philosophy is worth revisiting from time to time. So if you have written at any point what your philosophy of counselling is, maybe worth getting that assignment out and looking at it and say, is that me now? Am I the same person that wrote that? Or would I want to rewrite it again? And have a think about it. That kind of reflection is hugely important for a therapist to sustain themselves through the years, because we don't want to be dogmatic. We don't want to be stuck in one particular view of our philosophy, because philosophies by their very nature move on.
Indeed. Thank you, Rory. And if you are a student, I'm going to encourage you to go to counsellingtutor.com. Right at the very top, there's two words. One says qualified, and you can click on that if you're qualified, and the other one says student. And if you click on student, there's a whole section of the website that is dedicated to free resources for students. Use the search function if you're looking for something particular. They're all fact-checked. They're written by tutors and our academic team. We don't make it up. We bring together the facts from the textbooks. So there it is.